I'm a little disappointed that you guys didn't talk about the creepiest first date ever when they
Uh-oh.
go to the funeral home.
Oh my God. Yeah. No, I thought that was awesome.
You thought that was awesome. I
I
was like, this is the
did.
weirdest thing I've ever seen in a movie.
No, I
They're
totally.
literally laying in a
Yeah.
coffin listening to music. I was like, did this turn into like some kind of Vampire Diary weird genre mixture of a movie?
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Caffeinated Librarians. I'm Simona.
And I'm Amy.
And this afternoon, Amy and I will be discussing the 2020 Netflix comedy drama, Moxie. Moxie is adapted from the novel of the same name, written by Jennifer Mathieu. The story is about a young sophomore named Vivian who decides to challenge the sexist and outdated culture of her high school.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so Vivian, who is the central character, starts off as the classical kind of wallflower. She's content to be ignored and to keep her head down. Which is interesting, and this was a criticism that I just finished watching a YouTube video. Considering Vivian's mom's background, her mom, you find out, was very involved in feminism and the feminist like movement in
Mm-hmm.
school. She really challenged the status quo. And it's interesting that her daughter, Vivian, doesn't really seem to have been affected in any way by her mom's activism. I mean, throughout the movie, you see her mom like I was thinking of the grocery store incident when she's packing her groceries and the guy basically says, "Be careful with the eggs."
Mm-hmm.
Oh, you mean I shouldn't just dump them all in the bag? And like the guy gives her a look and then just like continues on his way, and she gives the
Right.
cashier like a little smirk. So
Yeah.
little things like that give you a clue as to how Vivian's mom views things. But Vivian
Right.
at this point doesn't seem affected by that at all. She sees it more as like her mom's being embarrassing and trying.
Well, yeah. I mean, I kind of liked that, that specific scene. I liked because, you know, I imagine that for a lot of people that grew up, you know, in protest eras, we'll say. And, I imagine that Amy Poehler is around the same age I am, which was not like the biggest of the protest times. Um, but I would think that like if all of these things that you fought for are realized, it must be quite a burn when your child takes them for granted.
Mm-hmm.
So like these kind of radical pushbacks might be exacerbated by the fact that her daughter doesn't really see where they're coming from until, the time that this movie takes place.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's definitely a possibility. I just found it kind of jarring
Mm-hmm.
at
Right.
first.
Me too, for sure. Like I didn't expect that from Amy Poehler's character until like that scene. I was like, oh, well, okay, this is a different person than I'd kind of imagined her being, because like, like when she's like trying to get her to take pictures of her first day of school,
Mm-hmm.
like, and again, like we are all walking contradictions, but it wasn't really the image that I kind of formed of her from just that scene alone.
Yeah. Yeah, you kind of get the feeling that there is some disconnect between Vivian and her mom, whose name I can't remember now.
Yeah.
Oh, Lisa.
Ah.
Between Vivian and her mom, Lisa, there is some kind of disconnect. But what really sort of catapults Vivian's activism is when she witnesses her classmate Lucy, whom I felt was definitely the more interesting character. I kind of wished the story would have centered more around her, but it didn't
Mm.
go in that direction. And Lucy is Afro-Latina, and she's played by Alicia Pascual Pena. And she's the new girl in the school who, as soon as she arrives, makes a splash. She has this epic sort of statement that she makes to her teacher because they're reading The Great Gatsby. And she becomes the target of Mitchell, who is the school like football star, you know. He's extremely popular, and they have this exchange in the class, and you think, okay, it's just a quick exchange and nothing will come of it. But it quickly escalates into where he becomes very intimidating, and he basically says, you know, I'm going to paraphrase, like, why do you have to cause trouble? Why do you have to be difficult? I'm just trying to be nice. And one reviewer who was talking about Lucy's character and her interaction with Mitchell framed it, and now I can't recall what the term is, but it basically refers to aggressions that are specific to women of color, like aggressions that women of color face. Now, I see Mitchell's behavior towards Lucy being the result that she is a person of color. I saw it more in that she's probably the first one that's ever called him on his BS and saying how I don't worship the ground that you walk on. That's how I interpreted his behaviors, because there's nothing about it that's overtly related to her race. It's more she's not sort of giving in to him, that she doesn't think he's spectacular.
Right.
I must imagine that he's used to many of the girls fawning over him, following him around. So here's this girl that basically says, I'm not impressed by you. So that's how I saw it.
Right. I do think there was an aspect of like, you people. That was he was, I think, harsher on her and made himself more threatening to her than I think he would feel. Trying to think of a word that doesn't sound like I'm a jerk, that he would feel more less societal pushback from being that abusive towards someone of a less like majority in that school color.
Okay, I mean, that's definitely a possibility. I just kind of wish that would have been explored more, because like I said, if that was the intent, I think it could have been made a bit more obvious, where there's no ambiguity. Like, is he reacting because she's Afro-Latina? Is he reacting because she's up to him? She's basically saying, you know, don't touch me. You know, you're not entitled to my time. You're not entitled to basically touch me in any way. You know, like, it would have been nice if he probably would have reacted to Sydney Park's character, Kira, who is the of the soccer team, the girls' soccer team, who's also a person of color. But like, there's no indication that that's happening. So like I said, it's definitely a possibility that there is that element in there. Right. She would have been explored a bit more.
And I think there was also an aspect that he didn't understand why she wasn't flattered.
Yeah, exactly. Because
like
getting what he wants.
Right. This is a high honor. Like, and you know, he wasn't like overtly abusive to other people of color. It sounds like he has quite a history of being pretty abusive to people that are white. So he might have been like, you know, this is out of the normal for me. Why aren't you super impressed?
Yeah, because like he is the popular jock. He's the classical jock character.
Yeah. I was very interested, and I didn't get a chance to read a lot of reviews. Like like I was skimming them like right before this today. And I did feel like I liked the diversity aspect. I liked that, and I liked that they were pushing back on a lot of stereotypes. Like, there was this all Asian rock band, all Asian girl rock band, which was fantastic, you know. And and it was good to see. I can't remember the best friend. I can't remember her name.
Oh, Claudia.
Claudia. It was good to see that dichotomy. It was nice to see like this all girl, all Asian rock band killing it with feminist music, while Claudia like is super in trouble because like that, like her family is definitely sounding like new immigrants, and and that there's like the whole stereotype about Asians being academically gifted and not being troublemakers and all of this stuff that she carries around. And and her mom clearly does not want her to be less than.
Which also I wonder could be a critique of sort of an aspect of Asian American culture.
Oh yeah.
You're striving for this excellence to the detriment of your child's mental emotional health.
Oh, correct.
Child really want to be a doctor or a lawyer.
Right. Well, that, and also, that's, I mean, it's great if you can get the grades, but that's also, there's this really detrimental part of, like of all stereotypes, but even a positive stereotype. And so it was nice to just kind of go, like, touch upon all of these diversity issues, even though it wasn't like the main thing.
Definitely. I mean, it's really hard. Whenever I see movies like this relating to high school, I can never really relate. And I think it's because I went to an urban high school. Like I joke that if a movie ever captured my high school experience, it would be Save the Last Dance, minus me being able to dance or dating a good-looking guy. But the whole environment is one of the only films I can really relate to. Even the whole thing about dress codes, I was talking with Laura before, because dress codes, and specifically dress codes targeting girls, is another issue that this movie addresses.
Yes.
Because there's a scene when, and I don't remember her name.
I don't either.
She's targeted because she's wearing a tank top, and because she is heavier on top, another girl who's also wearing a tank top but smaller on top is not told to cover up and go home, but the other is.
Because it's too tempting. It's too tempting for the boys that can't, I don't know, not do stuff.
Exactly.
And again, I loved that they didn't just go with the trope and have all the guys be jerks.
Yes, because I was afraid they would go that way.
Me too.
And I'm like, come on,
right.
Because you even see it in the news. Maybe last year, the year before, there were these guys that protested the dress code by wearing skirts to school. Solidarity for their female, students that, their classmates, they wore skirts. So there definitely are young boys that stand up to things. So I was glad that you were seeing that. It's not just all boys or jerks who like the girls. But I was telling Laura that I don't recall ever seeing anyone dress coded when I went to high school. Like I never saw, like there was never a time when a teacher walked in, or even my teacher, in class, and saying, oh, by the way, what you're wearing is inappropriate, go home and cover up. I never remember seeing that. So it's that you see this in like shows, or because I don't recall it ever being, like I always wondered if we had a dress code, because like ways, like do we have one? So like that's always really interesting.
I mean, it's used as a weapon. It's used as a weapon, and it's used to kind of, and it's definitely not used equally across body types. It's definitely not, equal among, probably colors, skin colors. But yeah, it's definitely, and that principal, oh my God, I hated her.
Principal Shelley.
Principal Shelley was just, if it's male versus female, she was playing for the opposition. She was like all about the men, and that dress code, that's distracting. It's distracting because you're just too pretty. and we don't want boys to be distracted by you.
She was definitely, I mean, Principal Shelley definitely tries to play it safe. She definitely doesn't want to rock the boat. And I'm thinking about when Lucy first goes to her and, oh, so Lou said that a fun fact, the principal in the book was a male.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, so
So
curious why they decided to switch it a bit, but that is
I mean, I see that. I actually can totally see that because it having a male principal that is such a stereotypical jerk and like goes along the lines with that villainy really would it would not show that there are women that are just as guilty of holding up this status quo than men. And then also, that male teacher, the only teacher we see basically, that teacher, even though at the beginning he's like, well, this is not a me issue. And he's taken down on, like, oh, you're not a human.
Yeah.
And then like at the end, he does have that personal growth where he does say, like, and I understand why he did it the way he did by, everybody that was supporting this cause had stars and hearts on their hands.
Yes.
And so it was probably not very helpful to people's jobs if they said, oh yeah, totally, girls, walk out. So he had to verbally express that it was a bad thing to do. And then he held up both of his hands and there was a star on one and a heart on the other of the palms of his hands. And I don't think if it was a female teacher and a male principal, that chance for growth and the chance for, I guess, growth for the principal, because she comes and she takes him out of class at the end, and she's so disappointed looking. That guy was a troll. Why are you like so stunned? But anyway.
Yeah, and I think we should touch upon, because I completely skipped over it, when basically the turning point for Vivian, like her attitude shift in general, happens at a school rally or a school football game. When there's a online list that's published, which ranks every female student according to a category. Some of the categories I can't really say on podcast, but Lucy basically gets labeled under a particular category, which is extremely offensive and vulgar. And she tries to tell Principal Shelley, but Shelley once again dismisses it, saying, oh, it's just fun.
Right.
And decides enough is enough. We're not gonna take it. And she basically creates this, I've been calling them zines. Is it zine?
I think it's zine. Like a double E sound.
Oh, okay.
I could be totally wrong, but I think it's like short for magazine. That's
magazine.
Where I'm getting it from.
Okay,
but
I'll go with that. So she creates the zine called Moxie, and she's inspired by, she comes across some of her mom's like
records and protests and
yeah. So she creates the zine, she calls it Moxie, and she makes a bunch of copies. I love when she goes to the copy store. Her interactions with the gentleman who owns are gold. So she makes all these copies and she leaves them in the girls' bathroom and sort of hopes for the best. So day by day it passed, and he was like, oh, no, like she's not seeing anyone reading it, until eventually they start reading it and it sort of becomes this phenomenon throughout the school, and everyone's trying to figure out who this Moxie is. And Vivian becomes emboldened to sort of continue with her activism. And eventually she gets other girls to join her, and they call themselves the Moxie Club. So it's Lucy, members of the female soccer team, and a few other women. They sort of gain strength and courage from one another to sort of start protesting what they feel is the sexist and is the outdated culture of their school. And as always, there's like major pushback. There's some suspensions involved. Everyone's trying to figure out who this Moxie is. And basically at one point, Vivian decides to take aim at Mitchell and a few of the other footballers. And that's when Mitchell has his airtime on the pirate radio. And he basically states that he's the victim of a smear campaign. His character is being maligned. And he basically casts doubt on the character of the person who's writing Moxie. Like,
Right.
this person can attack me. Who's next?
Right. And that you know, that people will stay anonymous so that they can remain safe. And that is being called into question as a character deficit. And I just to talk about that that airtime,
Mm-hmm.
I found it particularly telling that when they went to the principal to say, you know, we did not get offered this, you didn't ask.
Mm-hmm.
That you didn't ask is so prevalent. Like, yeah, because we didn't think we would get it. Like, we didn't
Mhm.
know. So, you know, somebody else that asked that got, you know, like it was so infuriating that you didn't ask.
Mm-hmm.
And as an excuse to give this just ridiculous monster dude a platform. I kind of hate him. He's kind of awful. And you know, it's interesting because I grew up with the 80s bad guys. And so, you know, the fact that he's a rapist, he's a straight up rapist, which comes to light where the girl that was sent home for wearing the quote unquote provocative top that somebody else was wearing came forward as being raped when
Emma.
she was Emma, when she was this troll's girlfriend.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, and not coming forward because what support would she get? People would be like, oh, you're trying to do this to him. Like, why are you doing this to him? So the fact that they kind of showed everybody, I lost my train of thought. Man. So I was just saying that Emma was raped by this troll. Oh yeah, back to 80s bullies. Haha, real life folks. I can't carry a thought. But yeah, I mean, like how many of those 80s villains like can we look back on and be like, oh yeah, it totally would be a rapist. But they didn't talk about those things in the 80s.
Well, I was even thinking about the film 16 Candles, which after watching it the first time, don't really understand the hype around the film. But the character, the love interest, for Molly Ringwald, her love interest in the film.
Ducky?
I'm sorry?
Is it Ducky?
No, this is for 16 Candles.
Oh, I'm getting my
Ducky.
80s.
Yeah,
messed
Ducky
up.
is for Pretty in Pink.
Oh yes, Molly Ringwald, man.
Yeah, like there's a scene where her love interest, he has his girlfriend who's one of the popular girls, and he's driving in the car with her, and she's drunk, and he gives the car to like the quote unquote nerd character, and he says, "Have a good time." Yeah.
I don't think I ever saw 16 Candles, which kind of makes sense since I thought it was
you're not missing anything, perfectly honest. And he basically says, have a good time. And then there's a follow-up scene where she says, did we do anything? I don't remember. And I don't know if the nerd character like turns and like looks at the audience and smile, but you don't know whether or not he took advantage of her, whether or not he simply just drove around town. Like you have no idea what he did.
Right.
But the fact that that could be a scene or a throwaway line in a film, and maybe there were people that were upset at it. Maybe most people took it as it's just a joke. But like that scene has always bothered me because it's really not funny, but it's a comedy because of course the nerd deserves the pop girl.
That whole like toxic masculinity football culture. I mean, I don't like, I did go to like a suburban high school where there were not like the balance of people of color was very, very small. Like they were in the complete and utter minority.
Mhm.
And so like those movies where like, it's the suburban bedroom community that's like basically 95% white. Yeah, I mean, it's a thing. And that it seems like where she lived, and it was like kind of that intermarriage between like the middle of nowhere Podunkville and like bedroom community, because people come to that like little middle of nowhere because it's close enough to the city.
Mhm.
And I definitely, I lived in Mayapack, and Mayapack, when I grew up in Yorktown, Mayapack was the sticks. It was like the middle of nowhere. And now Mayapack is a pretty big town and people will commute to the city from there.
Mhm.
But, so as you go further and further out, like there's this constant development of podunk to gentrified, like usable bedroom community. So,
Mhm.
and I also understand that feeling where everybody's like, yeah, I remember when he was picking his nose in second grade. Cause like I remember most of the people I went to school with from second grade.
Mhm.
I lived in Yorktown. I was born, like I moved to Yorktown when I was 3 years old, went through high school. Like basically, I have I have a memory of at least like one embarrassing thing about every single person in school.
Oh.
It's just the way it is in these small towns. So,
Mhm.
and the fact that you remember them when they were kind of blameless little turds, yeah, he was a turd in second grade, but everybody's a turd in second grade.
Yeah.
So, that like you can't really see the true dirt bag that lies inside
Mhm.
because you remember them from so long ago.
True, true. And there's also that notion of like outward goodness, meaning, well, there's also inward goodness,
Mhm.
lack of, that could have been phrased a bit better, but the whole
We'll
idea that
forgive you.
yeah, that because you present in a certain way, a certain face to the world, well, that's also a reflection of your inner character.
Right.
So Mitchell is definitely capitalizing on it. First of all, he's very attractive,
Mhm.
all-star.
Right.
He
And
has
he knows
money
he
and
can get away
influence.
with anything.
Exactly. He has money and influence. So he wields these weapons to his advantage.
Mhm. But yeah, I mean, you can see that happening. Like, whereas someone who wasn't as rich with great orthodontics and like that kind of privilege goes everywhere. So I can't really blame that woman for not really coming forward unless she had a solid base of support.
Well, no, are you talking about Emma?
Emma.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, like I went
Um,
back to Emma because
okay. Well, yeah,
however,
yeah,
oh,
I definitely understand that because the culture of the school, whether it's the girls or the boys, I can definitely understand why Emma would not have revealed it. Also, the trauma of the assault, sort of having to speak about it is having to relive it.
right. And that she wound up being the most like have sexable character in the like in that the football published like that yearbook thing. It was a yearbook thing, that's it, or something like that. But um, it that's insult upon injury, and it's all wrapped up together into that trauma now.
And even the whole idea of not rankings, but I remember my high school year
Mhm.
published, it was
Oh yeah,
best hair,
best smile, best
best
butt.
smile.
We had best butt.
Oh, we didn't have best butt. We had best hair, best smile, most popular. We had most quiet or something like that.
Yeah.
I don't know. I just
Amazingly, I never got anything. Like, because
neither did I.
it was all the popular kids.
Well, that's
You
what
would
always
see that
bothered me.
throughout the yearbook.
Well,
It
yeah,
was
like
all
if
the
you,
popular kids got all the recognition and everything.
yeah, and what I hated about the whole yearbook thing was that if you were on the yearbook committee, you basically plastered your face and your friends' faces everywhere. Like it happened to my sister, because my sister had a tougher time in high school because she really was not liked, because she was very studious. So there was
Mhm.
that she was stuck up, that, you know,
Right.
and she participated in a lot of events and was never featured in the yearbook, or and maybe like
Right.
one picture. And so I always felt that, you know, it was very unfair. The whole yearbook thing was very unfair. I almost didn't even want to bother buying my yearbook.
Oh yeah, I know.
But I remember those things, and I kind of figured, well, it was obvious so and so was going to get this ranking, you know.
Right.
And I even remember there were challenges to who our valedictorian was. Like even teachers were saying, oh, why is she the valedictorian? Because the golden child who was the salutatorian should have, like, it was like a whole, like there definitely were the popular people. And I think you definitely knew, but I don't really recall there being like obvious cliques, like the
Right.
footballers sing here, the cheerleaders sing there. It
Yeah.
was along racial or ethnic lines, like Jamaicans sat with Jamaicans, African Americans sat at, like Brazilians sat with Brazilians, Portuguese. I remember sitting with everyone and thinking, I really get it.
I can't even imagine the amount of diversity that you talk about.
Well, I remember, you know, like, because like I was the one where, you know, because there weren't a whole lot of white people anyway. So when I was sitting in the lunchroom, I was sitting with other African Americans or Hispanic, like, you know, and I was like, I don't get it. Like, why are they doing this? But yeah, there were definite divides. Like Jamaicans did not like African Americans. African Americans did not like Jamaicans. Brazilian and Portuguese, forget about it. They didn't like each other.
Yeah, I've
It
heard
was
about
sad.
that. Like that, you know,
Yeah.
people that you would think would group together
Nope.
in you know, when they're in a minority situation, are quick to say that they have I like they're not at all the same.
Yeah. So like, so those were the quote unquote cliques that I remember. But I always found it amazing. Like I remember we used to have these seminars because we always had to have talks. Because there were a lot of, like, we had gangs, there were a lot of racial tensions. And I remember like one girl said, you know, we can't even get along with one another. You have Jamaicans who don't want to talk to us, you know, like that's the problem. Like we can't even get over that. And we want to heal this aspect of our
Right.
student culture. And I remember sitting there, I'm thinking, really? Like, like I was sitting there and like being completely flabbergasted, like, I didn't know this was a thing, you know?
Right. Yeah, because there are so many things that are like completely, if you're not in that group, you would not know.
Yeah. So
You know,
yeah,
like
I find it
I
interesting.
remember like somebody said something, like this is gonna really point out how much of a nerd I was, but like somebody, like there was something that like my mom found out about, like read in the newspaper, and my sister, like who was not like wildly more popular than I did, but maybe a little bit more aware, was like, oh yeah,
Mhm.
that's where people all drink. That's where people like drank and made out. And I was like, that happened in our town? I did not even know. But I did want to talk about Hans. I can't remember Hans' name. They called him Hans because he showed up on the day that they were all starting to wear stars and hearts on their name. Oh, by the way, fun fact, Sam, is that Hans? Is Sam Hans? I think. Our erstwhile producer Lewis texted in that Sam is a professional skateboarder in real life and got his acting start in Olivia Wilde's Booksmart, which we will be doing at some point in the near future. He's fantastic and adorable and like the epitome of not all men. Like
Exactly. Yeah.
he is delightful. The more feminist Vivian gets, the more he's on board. Like he
Mhm.
loves that she's empowered. He loves that she's unique. He loves that he's fighting for other people, that she's fighting for other people. And he made my heart happy to see this like complete non-jerk in high school, because there are a lot of non-jerks in high school. You know, I had really, really good non-jerk friends that were boys. So, you know, it does need to be stated, and I'm glad that it wasn't, you know, they weren't painting everyone the same, except for the football team, because the football team was just all jerks.
Yeah, I keep on thinking, I can't remember his name, but the one that's always pumping up Mitchell, like when Mitchell has it, goes, yay, go.
His main groupie, I hated him.
And like I said, there's like silence in the class. He goes, Mitchell.
Yeah, he was ridiculous. I did want to talk about the mom's new boyfriend. And like,
Yes.
I have to say, I fast forwarded on 10 seconds, skip through that whole scene because it made me so uncomfortable. That when Sam and keeps losing her name, Vivian, have dinner with his friend, her new friend, the boyfriend, that she is a complete jerk about it. So yeah, I do. I kind of didn't know what to think about it. Like, why do you think she was like that?
I think first of all, she at that point in the game, her friend Claudia has been suspended at that point because Claudia was called into Principal Shelley's office. This is during one of Shelley's crackdowns. And Claudia, who is the originator of Moxie, and Claudia refuses to tell her. So Claudia is expelled, and of course, mother is extremely displeased, and she's basically homebound. She can't go out. Vivian goes to her house and basically says, "Oh, I'm so sorry, but what?" And basically, they have this back and forth thing. And at this point, Claudia is at the same time feeling left out of Vivian's sort of new friendship circle. And Claudia says, "You think I didn't know you're the one who wrote it? We've been friends since forever. And you should have had the courage and the decency to tell me that you wrote Moxie."
Right.
And she says, "And the reason why I didn't say anything is because I have character, I have courage." And she shuts the window and she says, "And now I need to go vacuum." And so Vivian is reacting sort of to realizing, yes, I did screw up. I should have been more honest. So she sees her mom, who at this point is acting sort of out of character, where she's like, almost like, not a housewife, that's the wrong term. And I don't want to insult women who are, but basically the way she's behaving is so out of character. Like she's making a fresh salad. She's doing, and basically Vivian says, "What's with the fresh salad? Oh, you can cook now?"
Oh no, that was so awkward. Oh
yeah. And then when the teacher tries to break the boyfriend tries to break the tension, talks to Sam, says, "Oh, what are they teaching you in class these days? Or what subject don't you like?" And he says, "Oh, physics is killing me." And he goes, "Oh yes, I remember when physics was killing me. Do they still teach you those like," well, I can't remember the term, where basically it helps you remember something. And then he says, "Well, why don't you ask me about physics? You're not asking me because I'm a girl?" And the guy says, "No, do you like physics?" So her reaction is a reaction to her own anger and her own self-shame. Basically explodes on Sam, explodes on the boyfriend, tells her mom, "Why are you behaving this way?" And I kind of also, I don't know if this was the intent of the producer, but I kind of saw it also as a critique of women who basically tell other women, well, if you are more domestic, you're not a real woman, you have ambition, "Oh, you want a mom? Oh, you're a sellout." Because I've definitely heard it. I remember my mom was a housewife for many years. She started working when I was in 3rd grade is when she actually got a job. And I remember I told my college classmate, she says, "Oh, well, she obviously didn't know any better and she didn't know what she wanted to do." And I feel like that's a little presumptuous and arrogant of you to assume that my mother didn't know her own mind. So I kind of saw it as a critique of that, where basically you can still be feminist, you can still be a woman, but
Right.
be more traditional, quote unquote, in what you want to do. It doesn't make you any less of a woman.
Right.
I liked how her mom told me, you do not have the right to talk to me like that because I'm a human being. You know, you don't have that right to get angry. So that's long. I know I was really long, but
That's
that's
okay.
Vivian was reacting that way.
Right.
She felt so much shame and guilt for Claudia, and she
Hmm.
realized I messed up. And I think
Right.
she eventually tries to make it better.
Hmm. And I definitely saw at the end when she said, "And why doesn't Dad want to have me for Christmas?"
Oh yeah, yeah.
You know, like that little voice that
Mhm,
finally is just expressing like, and you want to bring in a new dad, and the dad I
mhm,
have got married and now he doesn't want anything to do with me, and
mhm,
like all of that pain kind of
mhm,
like coming out in really unattractive and unhappy and unhealthy ways. And
mhm.
I just found out today that um 8 and up is a tween in some circles, which I did not need to know, because 8 8
8.
I saw 8 plus is a tween age, and
Oh, really?
it makes
8?
sense. Yeah, it makes sense because my daughter is totally acting like a teen already, which I mean, maybe we're getting more and more early as tweens because of the way people are maturing. But yeah, I already don't know anything.
Hmm.
It's exciting to see, you know, like she can make such big mistakes.
Mhm,
You know, as a teen, she can already make such big mistakes and be so hurtful. And I loved that Sam like stood up and it was just like, you know, I I can't I can't put up with this. Like, and like again, that masculinity is not about being tough. It's
mhm,
about being, you know, about holding to your beliefs, just like how feminism, yes,
mhm,
feminism is not about, you know, like I'm gonna be a trucker
mhm,
because because I can be, and because that like I'm not going to be at home, like, you know, like there's I'm divorcing myself from all like all old fashioned feminine ideals because they were forced upon us, and now we are having the converse of that forced upon us, or we're not
mhm,
feminists.
mhm. Yeah, definitely. So that's how I kind of also read that scene and the way the mom responds to it.
Hmm.
I like the boyfriend because at first I wasn't sure how to feel about him. Like, is
I
he?
know I didn't like him much at the grocery store.
Yeah, because like, how am I supposed to read that reaction? But then
Right.
look at him at dinner. I was like, oh, he's really a sweet guy. And I
Hmm.
hope that. I mean, they kind of drop. You never really see him again.
Yeah, well, that's
But
okay.
yeah, but I kind of hope that it is a like a good relationship. But
Yeah. I, you know, there is an aspect when you're in a relationship, in a new relationship specifically, that you want to show off aspects of your personality that your family,
mm-hmm,
in whatever capacity you have family, doesn't recognize.
mm-hmm,
You know, like, you know, like, oh, you're cleaning your room? What's this about? You know,
yeah,
like that was the earliest, because like I wanted to have, you know, like if I wanted to have a boy over, I'd want, you know, like I'd want the house to look nice and up, you know, so I'm straightening up and like,
mm-hmm,
you know, like who are you?
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And you know, and I'd never shown any interest in cooking before, and I started dating my now husband, and I was like, I need to cook something. And you know, and it wasn't like I was faking.
Yeah.
I wanted to take care of him in a way that I didn't really want to take care of other people before,
Mm-hmm.
you know, in as much of a tangible way.
True. Yeah. So that's definitely a really good scene, a really good moment. And my favorite moment, just to round off the puck,
Mhm.
the end, when Emma comes forward and reveals herself to be the one that sent the anonymous note written to Moxie,
Mhm.
reveals what Mitchell did to her on the night of the prom, and then other girls start coming up, speaking their truth.
Right.
And, there's just this, sense of unity among the student body because they've all
Right.
walked out. They've had a mass walkout. And at the same time, Vivian reveals that she's the one who wrote Moxie, why.
Mhm.
And at least there's some hope where there might be some small change within the school because the principal is observing all of this.
Mhm.
She pulls Mitchell out of class, and the assumption is that he has been arrested, or at least the police are, going to talk to him.
Right.
Um, so like that, and that ending was very emotional for me because, I like when all the girls come together and they are supporting one another,
Mhm.
their truths, their realities. So it was a really good moment, a really good ending.
Yeah. The only thing I didn't find, I don't know, and that maybe this makes me, and I could be a cynic. I don't know. Could be. But I did not think that the part where the principal went and got Stinkhead Stinky Man. I don't remember his name.
Mitchell.
Okay, thank you. I do enjoy Stinkhead Stinky Man better.
Mhm.
But anyway, that she went and got him and she was all tearful looking. She was quite happily supporting everything up to this. And you can't tell me there weren't rumors that he was an absolute ridiculous, hostile male before. And she hasn't, and I'm sure she was just as dismissive of when what's her name came to report him.
Lucy.
Lucy, thank you. So the fact that she was like, all of a sudden when a white girl says she was raped, she either cares or would do anything. If the only reason I think she would is because it was a white girl.
I mean, I don't know if that was probably an attempt on the writer's part of making
Right.
her more endearable.
Right. Yeah.
He is doing something in the end. I mean, I kind of also saw that as a bit odd, as like, why the shift? Unless you want to go with the argument where she didn't feel any support and that's why she didn't do anything, but
Nah.
apparently the entire student body is, rallied.
Right.
No, I think it might have been because at the end you get the teacher who shows his support. Although the teacher
Mhm.
more as, because teachers have to be mindful of what they say in their job.
Right.
So I didn't see him as being not supportive.
Right.
I just felt like he thought, well, if I do this, what will happen? I think eventually he decides, okay, it doesn't matter. So I'm going
Right.
to support. And I thought that was a cool scene where
I did too. I love that scene. That
and
made me tear up.
Yeah. So his story, I buy it a bit more.
Exactly.
Well, I kind of saw it as we need someone to sympathize with this character because she's been too bad. So we're going to make her one that walks in.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Okay. So we're running. We've run out of time. So why don't we final thoughts this thing?
Okay. While there definitely are things that could be like critiqued about it, I think overall it is a cute movie for whatever message is trying to like tell. It is based on a YA novel. I've never read the novel. I don't know how close it is, but I would definitely recommend you give it a watch. So
Right.
definitely give it a watch.
Mm-hmm. I am desperately in love with Amy Poehler, which I didn't say until now, so that's something. And I think that like I'm so glad that she didn't produce something that made me cringe about that. Like like that I came out of this movie loving her more than ever, loving her more than I did for her comedy, loving her more than I did for her smart girls stuff. Like the fact that she builds and builds and builds on this caring, ethical human being
Mm-hmm.
aspect that I don't feel like we see as much of a commitment to in a lot of other people. So yeah, just for that, just if you like Amy Poehler, totally see it. But it's a great lesson. And it, you know, yes, it's a little trite sometimes, but I think everything is. And I think we should definitely see it for how much it tried to include diversity and talk about things that are really hard to talk about in a way that allows for growth.
Definitely. So, thank you everyone once again for tuning in, and we look forward to talking with you next time. So everyone have a great day, stay safe and stay healthy.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye everyone.